Fast Tech. Welcome to another Fast Tech video. Before we start, please go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That costs you nothing and it helps us out a lot. So please go ahead and do that before we start this video. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to fix the yellow light of death on a backwards compatible PS3. You're going to need some tools like a heat gun, our Fast Tech Pro Auto Kit, which is an automatic screwdriver that not only disassembles your PS3, but your PS4, your PS5, your Series X, laptops, iPhones, everything in between. You can use the coupon code YouTube for a discount on any of our products at fasttechstore.com. Let's get started.
PS3 we're going to be working on today is a backwards compatible CECHX E01 PS3. The CECHX E01 is exactly the same as this system, the only difference being hardware backwards compatibility with PS2 games, but the layout of the systems is exactly the same. So if you have a backwards compatible PS3 with yellow light of death, this video is going to be very helpful to you. So make sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're going to be fixing the yellow light of death, and I'm going to be showing you guys how to fix this issue using simple tools like a heat gun if you don't have a hot air station at home. This PS3 that we're going to be working on today still has its warranty sticker on, which is very unusual for these launch systems. What this means is that the system has never been opened up before. So we have a system that's untouched, and that's the best system to learn on. So that's why I figured this was a great opportunity to show you guys how to fix this issue on your own. You can check the model number of these systems by looking at the back, and the last 6 characters, which start with CECH, that's going to be your model number. So this one's a CECH E01, the 01 being the country code, which is United States, Canada. The most important thing to look out for are these characters before the numbers. So if you have a CECH E system or a CECH A system, this video applies to your console. The other PlayStation 3s that followed this have a similar layout. The principles remain the same, but the disassembly and reassembly is different. So please refer to my other videos if you want to learn how to disassemble and reassemble those consoles. Let's get started. So we're going to start disassembly on this PS3. The first thing we have to remove is this warranty sticker right here, which is still intact. So to keep this console as mint and as clean as possible, I'm going to use a heat gun to remove the warranty sticker on this. I'm going to set it to a very low setting, around, I'd say 200 degrees Fahrenheit. No warmer than that. We'll maybe go up to 240 if we have to, but we're going to start at 200. You can also use a hair dryer if you don't have a heat gun at home. And this step is completely optional. We're doing this because we want to preserve this warranty sticker, because this is a rather collectible system. So we want to preserve the warranty sticker, because for a collector, you know, that would mean something. But of course, if we were ever to sell this system, we would let the customer know that this system was refurbished. But if you want to keep your warranty sticker intact, I recommend that you do this step. So what we're doing is we're just heating up the surface of the sticker, and what that does is it loosens the adhesive underneath, and then we're able to remove the sticker without it showing that it's voided. Because if you skip this step, the sticker's going to say void on it repeatedly, and people will know that the system is open. Now this is a system that we bought from a customer, and I don't know if I'll resell it. I'll probably just keep it in our collection, because we are stocking up on these. I believe these systems will be worth a lot of money one day. And there's a huge community of people who collect these systems.
In the interest of time, I'm going to speed up the rest of the heating process. So I basically heat up the sticker, and as I'm heating it up, I rub my finger on the sticker to make sure that the adhesive is being warmed up evenly.
Got my tool here. So just heat it up a little bit more. Take your time with it. Run your finger across. Make sure it's still nice and hot. And now slowly peel this sticker off. I'm gonna heat it up a little bit more because I can hear it struggling a little bit. I don't like that. And heat it up more. And then go to the top. And you can see that this warranty sticker is still intact. There you go. It doesn't say void, so if I put it back on, it's still clean. There's no void marks on it, as you can see. And if you've done this correctly, this is how your warranty sticker is going to look. But these systems don't have any warranty anyways. We are simply doing this to keep this console as stock as possible, since I believe these are going to be collectible one day. And when you're sticking this onto something, make sure you only stick it on one corner. And ideally, you want to use something like sticker paper if you have it. Now we're gonna get this piece out. You can grab this rubber stop with your fingertips and just pull it out. There's a screw hiding underneath. It's gonna be a Torx T8H, which is part of our FastTech Pro Auto Kit, which is an automatic screwdriver that not only disassembles your PS3, but all PlayStation systems, including the PS5, your Xbox, laptop, you name it. Links are going to be in the description box, and you can use the coupon code YouTube for a discount. So we're going to attach a T8H to our FastTech Pro Auto Kit. And we want to pull up the case as we're doing this. That'll just make the screw come out easy. Once that screw has been disengaged, we can slide off the cover like this, and it'll come off. You want to make sure that this screw does not fall out and get lost, and make sure that this piece right here, which is part of this mechanism that keeps the lid shut, you don't lose that. Now we're going to switch to a Phillips. We're going to get a size PH2 from our FastTech Pro Auto Kit. Then we're going to remove these Phillips screws to remove the case. This last screw is going to be tricky to get out. You can use your pry tool to take it out, or you can just lift up the case at this point. And you see how that piece flew out? That's why I was saying don't lose that piece. I'm going to lift up the case, and the last screw is just going to come out like that. That's the easiest way to get it out, in my opinion. And the system is dusty as hell, which I kind of expected. I mean, this system is, man, let's see, what's the manufacturing date on this? I don't recommend you flip your system over at this point. I'm holding the disk drive. If you had flipped it over like that, bad things would happen. The disk drive would fall out, so don't do that. I'm a professional, yeah? So this system was manufactured in April of 2007. Right here, that's where your manufacturing date is. And it's never been opened, so I'm not too surprised that it's this dusty. But this is going to be a fun restoration project. No surprise it got the yellow light of death. I would imagine the heatsink is also going to be full of dust. This system was definitely played, and it was played hard. We're gonna lift up the disk drive at this point. There's a cable running underneath. Be very careful. There's actually two cables. One for the power, which I recommend you remove from here. And then there's one for the disk drive. There's a ribbon cable and there's a clip which is hidden under dust. So we're gonna remove this dust. You're gonna see there's a clip here. Be very careful with this clip. I've had trained technicians of mine break these clips. These are very sensitive. You just lift it up gently. This one's not coming off as easy. I'm gonna use my finger. Stick my fingernail in there and gently lift it up. Be very careful. And then get the ribbon cable out. That's the disk drive right there. Get that out of the way. You have to get a few components out of the way, including the power supply, the memory card modules, and the Wi-Fi adapter. Get this out of the way. There's some tape that holds this cable in. We're gonna try to get this tape off if we can without breaking it. There you go. Came off rather nicely. Oops. Rest in peace to that piece of tape. We tried to save it, but can't save them all. Maybe if I ran the heat gun on it. Put F's in the comments for that piece of tape. Then we're gonna lift this antenna for our Wi-Fi adapter. Simply lift it up with our FastTech Pro Toolkit Pry tool. This is not part of the auto kit, but this is the manual version of our toolkit, which includes this pry tool. We're gonna get this tape off, which is on the side of the power supply. Get this antenna out of the way. And I recommend removing this antenna at this point. There's a single Phillips screw, just like the rest of them. A little bit hard to take off, so we're gonna use the manual feature of the FastTech Pro Auto Kit. It can also be used manually. Let's get that antenna off. Let's get some of this dust off. I should have worn gloves for this job. It seemed pretty clean on the outside. Now we're gonna lift up the network adapters. There's a cable running underneath. You can remove it from here with this clip, or you can remove it from here. I recommend most people remove it from here, from under, because this one has no clip. You can simply pull it out and it comes out. It's a lot easier to remove it this way. We're gonna give all of these components a clean later on, but for now, we're trying to fix the problem first. Now it's time for the power supply to come out. One more screw here. Now we're going to remove this cable, lift up the power supply. There's a pinch connector here that you have to pinch and then pull out. That's the power supply right there. It's responsible for powering issues. Some yellow light of death issues are caused by the power supply, but only if the system does not go in an infinite boot loop cycle, which means once you press the light, it goes yellow, red, and then turns off completely. No power, no lights at the front. Those kinds of yellow lights are caused by these power supplies. And also what's caused by the power supply is if the system does not power on at all. And the model number is an APS226 for those who are wondering. And we do sell these on our website at fasttechstore.com.
That is not what's causing the yellow light of death today though, because as we saw earlier in the video, this system goes in that constant boot loop cycle where you keep pressing the button, it goes yellow and then turns off, and then you have to press the button again. So, continuing with the repair. There's a bunch of screws that have to come out from the motherboard. This right here is the grounding wire for the power supply. I got one taller screw in here. There's two smaller Phillips screws here that we have to remove. We're gonna remove this cable from the front. You can also remove it from here, but I recommend removing it from there because there's no clip on that side. You're gonna have to use a smaller bit for these screws over here. A size 1 or a 0. I use the 0 for those who are wondering. Now we're gonna remove the hard drive because we have to get it out of the way. There's a tab in here you can stick our pry tool in from our FastTech Pro toolkit. Links in the description box, as I mentioned earlier. There's a Phillips screw. You can also use a size 1 or a 0. I'm not going to use the auto feature for this because I don't want to put any scratches on the screw, so I'm going to use the manual feature. And maybe I'm going to use a screwdriver that's a little bit bigger. I don't want to damage the screw at all, so for this one we're going to use a Phillips size 1 instead of a 0. I'm going to manually turn my auto kit. Man, the screw is really in there. This is usually not that hard to remove. Now that I feel it moving, now I can use the auto feature. I could have just used the auto feature from the beginning, but I don't want any of this paint to be scratched. We're trying to keep the system as mint as possible. We're gonna lift out the hard drive like this. This is an 80 gig hard drive because that's the size capacity these EO1 systems were shipped with. Maybe in a later video we're gonna be upgrading it to an SSD, so stay tuned for that one. Stay tuned. What am I, a boomer? We're gonna lift out the back like this. And at this point, it should just come out like that, lift it up, and then pull outwards like this. It's gonna come right out. You can see that the case is really dusty. We're gonna get to that in a minute. Yeah, this is definitely one of the filthier systems I've seen, but that's what I would expect from a system this old. You got the 19 blade fan in there, which is a very coveted fan. These only came in the first gen systems, AO1, EO1. And now we're gonna remove the back panel. We're gonna lift up these clips. There's one here and there's one here. And at this point, you should just be able to pull it off like this. We're gonna remove this cable. You don't really have to, but I would recommend that you remove it at this point. But don't rip out this connector. A lot of people, when they rip out the white cable, they rip out the off-white part as well, so take note of that. We're gonna remove these 4 Phillips screws that hold the heat sink. It's still strange opening a system this old that still has the warranty sticker intact. I could use the auto feature, but I do want to loosen them a little bit before I do, because we don't want to strip these screws.
That one was kind of loose. Now we're gonna lift up this piece right here. Man, this thing is dirty. Now we're gonna flip it over. There's a couple of screws here that we have to remove. These would be a size 0 or a size 1 Phillips. The FastTech Pro Auto Kit is gonna save you a lot of time, I guarantee it, so make sure to check it out on our website at fasttechstore.com. Now we're gonna pull out this cable that's tucked underneath. This is for the fan. We can remove it by the connector. You can grab the connector and then pull it out, wiggle slowly and pull like this. Alternatively, you can also grab all of the wires, slowly wiggle and pull. Don't grab one cable though. Grab all of them at the same time. That will distribute the force. So that way you're not pulling only on one wire, all of them at the same time, and it will come out. That I'm showing you this method because it's better than ripping out the connector from the motherboard, which is what a lot of people end up doing. Now we're gonna lift up the heatsink. It should come off like this, and as you can see, the thermal paste is completely dry on the RSX and the cell, the CPU and the GPU, for those who don't know, which is expected. Completely bone dry, as you can see here. Same thing on the CPU, GPU heat spreaders. If your system was this dirty, it will also be a good idea to clean out the heatsink. Remove this fan, clean out the heatsink on that side. We are gonna get to that later on in this video. We're gonna remove this time and date battery connector. For a lot of people, the bottom side might come out. I don't know if this one's gonna come out, but if it does, I know how to put it back in. Because the plastic on it, after time, heats up and degrades. So what I like to do is I like to hold down the yellow part, the bottom side of the connector. Then I grab the white part, I wiggle, and I pull. But as I mentioned earlier, lots of times, the bottom connector is gonna come off. These are known to come off. This is the toughest one so far. There you go. So yes, the bottom side connector did come off, which will come off for a lot of people. So you can just simply put it back in the same way it came off, like this. Or you can try to separate the connector from the connector on the board. This one only has 4 pins, very easy to put back on. And for most of you, the bottom end will come on. I'll show you how to put that back on once we're reassembling this thing. Now we can lift off this panel, which will reveal even more dust. Now we have access to CPU, GPU chips, which is what we're gonna be working on today. We're gonna go ahead and remove these thermal pads using our FastTech pry tool. These ones came off very nicely. If you want to replace these thermal pads, we also sell replacement thermal pads on the website. If you want to replace them, check the links in the description box. These are in surprisingly good condition for looking at how much dust this system has and the fact that it has yellow light of death. These are in fairly good shape. At this point, we're gonna grab some isopropyl alcohol and some paper towels, and we're gonna clean the old thermal paste with isopropyl. And you can use any kind of fabric material, as long as it's something that's not gonna leave fibers on the board or on the chip, because that could cause a short. And don't worry about isopropyl alcohol getting on the motherboard, because by the time you turn on the system, the alcohol is gonna evaporate. This paste is extremely dry, and the drier the paste is, the easier it comes off. You can see it's coming off in chunks. So this paste is definitely past its best before date, no doubt. We're also gonna use isopropyl alcohol to clean the dust bunnies off the motherboard. If any of these thermal pads come off, just put them right back on. You can also alternatively put them on the plate, and then that way you know exactly where they go. That way there's no confusion when you're reassembling this thing. You can also use compressed air can to blow this off, which we also sell on our website at fasttechstore.com.
Next, I wipe down the motherboard very carefully with some isopropyl alcohol and wipes. As I mentioned earlier, you don't have to worry about isopropyl alcohol staying on the motherboard, since by the time we turn this on, it is going to evaporate. For the next step, we're going to be performing what's known as a reflow. You're going to need either a hot air station or a heat gun for this, and you can even use a hair dryer. You're going to heat up the CPU and GPU chips. You want to set your heat gun or your hot air station to about 900 degrees Fahrenheit or 482 degrees Celsius. The goal here is to heat up the solder connections under the cell CPU and RSX GPU, which in 90% of the cases cause the yellow light of death. In some rare cases, the problem is also caused by the NEC token capacitors that are right underneath the cell CPU and RSX GPU chip. Set up a timer on your phone for 9 minutes and make sure to always go in a circular motion. Never keep your heat source on one point on the motherboard for too long, as you could end up damaging components that way. Also, I want my viewers to know that in some cases, the problem could come back, as you could have an issue with the chip itself or the solder bumps underneath the CPU and GPU die that could be causing this issue that might be temporarily fixed by heating them up, but in the long term, the chip itself may need replacing. So once you do perform this repair and it ends up fixing your system, it's a good idea to back up your data. In the interest of time, I'm going to speed up the rest of this sequence. If you need any of the tools, including the heat gun, check out the links in the description box. The heat gun that I'm using is a higher end Wagner heat gun, which costs about $150, but you don't need something this high end, so I'll include some cheaper alternatives for anyone who's interested. I also want to mention that it's very important that you do not move the motherboard while it's hot. You want to give it at least 15 to 20 minutes once we're done doing this to make sure that the motherboard is nice and cool before you move it around, as moving a hot motherboard could cause damage. And don't forget to use coupon code YouTube at fasttechstore.com for this heat gun, the FastTech Pro Auto Kit, or any PS3 part. Once we're done with our reflow, we're going to set another timer on our phone, this time for 15 minutes, and we're going to wait for the motherboard to cool down completely before we move it. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. It's completely normal to hear ticking sounds from the motherboard while it's cooling down, just like a car. And I'll say it again that it's very important that you do not move the motherboard while it's cooling down. So about 15 minutes have passed. Now we're gonna flip the board over. We're gonna make sure that it's cool first. It is. Now we're gonna flip it over. And now we're gonna do the same thing on the back of the CPU and GPU. Same thing, 900 degrees. Again, you could start off with a lower temperature and work your way up. I'm going with the highest possible temperature that I know is safe. Let's set the timer once again to 9 minutes. And now we're going to do the same thing at the back for 9 minutes. And once again, in the interest of time, I've sped up this part of the video because it would be like watching paint dry. As it says on the bottom left side of the screen, in case you missed it, we're going to heat up the back of the motherboard just like we did the front, only focusing our heat on the CPU and GPU for about 9 minutes at 900 degrees Fahrenheit or 482 degrees Celsius. While I was waiting for the motherboard to cool down, I wanted to clean the case because it was filthy. So I put some warm water and some dish soap in a tub and I cleaned out the case. The back plate, the top, all needed a good cleaning. And it goes without saying that you must make sure that your case is dry if you are going to clean it with water the way I'm cleaning it. I shouldn't have to mention it, but as they say, common sense ain't that common. I would also recommend using Mother's scratch remover, which is a scratch remover that's usually used for cars, but it works great on the PlayStation 3 and any glossy black plastic surface if you want to get some of those surface scratches off the case. Now we're going to be applying some Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut Extreme, which is the Rolls Royce of thermal paste. Now, you don't have to go that extreme, pun intended, and you can get the regular version, which is Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut. But since at FastTech we only use the best, we only use products on our customer systems that we would use ourselves, we're using the highest end of thermal paste, as we always do. So we're gonna get our applicator out. We're gonna get some thermal paste on here. And the trick is to apply just enough to cover the chip surface. Now normally I would not use that much in any other application, but you guys can see that there's a lot of surface area here to cover. So we're gonna start applying some and then just spread it out. So with the included applicator, we're just gonna spread this paste around, making sure that there's no gaps, as those can cause air bubbles when the heatsink is seated on top of the heat spreader. If you like watching paint dry, you can watch my PS3 CECHX E01, CECHX A01 thermal paste replacement guide videos on FastTech, where I show you guys how to replace this paste in real time. But in the interest of time, once again, since this is already a long video and I didn't want to make it any longer, teaching you guys something that you already know and maybe perceived as common sense. But then again, common sense ain't common. Next, I reinstall the thermal pads. You can replace these if you want to, but in most cases your old ones will be just fine. If you're looking for replacement pads, check the links in the description box and the top comment. Next, we're going to wipe off the old paste off the heatsink, which should come off very, very easily with some isopropyl alcohol and wipes. Now I'm going to install this part of the plate back on, flip it over, same thing at the back. We're gonna install the battery for time and date. Plug it in, install it in its place. Boom. Gonna reattach the heatsink. The old paste has also been removed. Attach the fan. Route the cable like that. Flip it over. There's some screws here and heatsink clamps that we're going to reinstall. Now for this part, you could use the FastTech Pro Auto Kit to tighten them, but I recommend using a manual screwdriver because you really want to feel the tightness, and the best way to do that is to use a conventional screwdriver. And we sell these on our website as well, in case you're wondering. You notice how I'm not like tightening one all the way? I tighten one a little bit and then I go across like that. You don't want to tighten one and then tighten the others, because then you're gonna have uneven pressure and that's gonna cause all kinds of problems, and that would be bad. Okay, so now that I've gotten like an even amount of tightness and I can feel that it's nice and tight, now I can continue with the rest of the reassembly. Now that we have it tightened, we can reinstall the back plate, which is this piece here. The clips go over like this. Notice where the clips are. And then you push it in and it clicks in place. Now we're going to reinstall the motherboard into the case. This side is going to go in first like this. And you notice how these pieces where the screws go, these
go over the motherboard like this, and then we're just gonna drop the back in like that. Gonna reconnect the power and eject sensor cable at the front by pushing the cable in all the way to the blue line. And at this point, I'm gonna install a couple of screws, and then I'm going to test the system before I reassemble it fully. We're gonna install that screw there, so we're gonna install the power supply back in. We're gonna reinstall the grounding screw right there, and now we can install the power supply back in by putting this cable in like this, pushing it in, seating the power supply down. There's these 2 points that go in here, and then this connector at the front, you can just push it down like this. Make sure you tuck this cable in like that. And now we're gonna plug the power cable in and just test the system. Now I'm gonna turn on the system to make sure that it works. And yes, the green light stays on. There's no more yellow light of death. And now that we know that the system works, we can reassemble it with all the screws in. These 2 Phillips screws that are much smaller than the rest of them. These 2, one of them goes here, and the other one goes in here. Now we're going to install the grounding screw for the power supply. I'm going to plug in the power supply. Boom. And then we're going to plug the power cable in at the front. And now these smaller Phillips screws, there's the longer ones, and then there's the smaller ones. These are for the board, these are for components like power supply and network adapter, etc. So we're going to start installing the smaller screws for the power supply. We're going to tuck this cable here. The longer screws, as I mentioned, are for the motherboard. Those go here, 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 and the last one goes here. Now we're going to reinstall the disk drive. We're going to lift up the connector very, very gently. Remember, these are very easy to break. Insert the cable roughly up until the blue line, and then push the connector down gently. Now we're going to reinstall the disk drive cable like that, and like this on the motherboard end, and tuck this cable underneath this hook here.
Now we're going to be installing the network module back in, which is responsible for your Bluetooth and Wi-Fi transmissions. If this is to ever fail, your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth will no longer work. There's a cable that connects it, a wire. It's got a circle connector. You just push it down and it'll clip in place. Then once we're done connecting that wire, there's a flat ribbon cable underneath that we're going to line up with the connector and then just push it down. You're going to feel it go in. Now that we have the network module connected, we're going to reinstall the 4 screws that hold it in.
And now the case is going to go back on. Front goes on first like that. Line it up. Push down. We're going to put all the screws back in, the long ones. Go here, 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 and here. And the short screw goes in here. It's labeled S. Short one goes in the corner. We got to make sure that this piece is in here. This is the piece that holds this screw in. So we're going to make sure that this piece is in here. And we're going to make sure that our T8 security screw is on the case like this. While the screw is still in there, we're going to make sure that it stays in. You can use your finger to hold it on. We're going to put the cover right around here. So you can see it's a little bit offset. We're going to put it, and then we're just going to slide it down. Then we're going to use our FastTech Pro Auto Kit to tighten that T8H. Now that that cover is on, now we can install the last piece, which is the hard drive. You can just slide it in. You can just slide it in like this. Goes in kind of like a bolt action rifle. Now we're going to switch back to a Phillips, and then we're going to install this blue screw. Now we're going to install the hard drive cover back on, and now this rubber stop goes on here, which hides that security screw. So now I've got the PS3 plugged in to a TV. I'm going to turn it on to make sure that the display comes on. And it does. Also got a PS4 controller plugged into my PS3, and a lot of people don't know that you can use any PS4 controller on any PlayStation 3 as long as you've got the USB cable plugged in. So it says on the screen that the system storage must be formatted, and we usually get this message when a new hard drive has been installed or it's not the original hard drive that was once paired to the system.
Since this is not our console and belongs to a customer, I left the hard drive and did not format it since there might be data on there that they might need. I did, however, leave the console on overnight and did give it a few more boot cycles to make sure that everything was working as it should. I also want to remind our viewers that in some cases the problem could come back. A reflow is in no way a fix-all solution to all of your BGA issues, and in some cases your GPU and CPU chip itself might be the problem. If you are interested in doing this on your system and need a heat gun or the thermal paste, be sure to check us out at fasttechstore.com, and you can use the coupon code YouTube for a discount. This video was tremendously difficult to produce because of constant malfunctions from the GoPro camera that you're seeing in the reflection of this PS3. So for my hair follicles and the hair transplant surgery that I'm going to need to fix the damage that's been done, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching another Fast Tech video. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the video before you leave. That way you can keep up with our newest content. We're always putting up videos showing you guys how to fix your own devices. And be sure to check out fasttechstore.com. If you need any of the parts that you saw in this device today, we got parts for Xbox, PlayStation, MacBook, iPhone, and everything in between. And you can use the coupon code YouTube for a discount. This is Shiroz from Fast Tech, and I'll see you in the next one.